In this video, I am using the UiPath Studio 2025 0.167 and I'm using the Robotic Enterprise Framework, which is also known as ReFramework, the latest available 6/6/2025 24.10.1. Using this template, we are going to build an project. This would be absolutely interesting. All I would request you to continue till the end of the video. So the goal of the video is to design a dispatcher bot, and we'll be using the RE framework, and I'm going to teach you the design steps. What are the variables you have to use, what changes you have to do to the template, everything I'm going to teach you. And the interesting part, we would be using the RE framework template. We would not delete some of the states. We will keep everything and we will try to modify it to meet the dispatcher requirement. Before we get started, I would like to go to my channel. A few days back, I have released a video called Learn UiPath RE Framework for UiPath RPA Developers. If you have good knowledge on what is RE Framework, you can continue to this video. If not, my recommendation is, if this is the first time you are hearing about RE Framework, you should watch this video. This will give you fundamentals and concepts of RE Framework. And after this, you should continue on to this video. So being said, assuming that you know about RE Framework and you are aware of RE Framework, I'm getting started. All right, now to start a dispatcher design, the very first thing, we will open Studio. One important criteria, ensure you are already connected in the assistant. If you see, my assistant is connected and licensed. Ensure you have connected your license because we have to send the data to UiPath Orchestrator Queue. Assuming all the prerequisites are done and you are aware of them, let's get started. The very first thing, open Studio, and in the home page where you see Start, here you have an option called More Templates. I'm going to click on More Templates. After that, you would find the Robotic Enterprise Framework, or else you can also search for it to look for this template. I'm going to click on this Robotic Enterprise Framework template, and let's be aware of the version that I am using at this moment, 24.10.1. The concept of RE framework has remained almost the same from last couple of years. In the future, there could be a few more improvements might have been done and the version might change. However, the concept would remain the same. So let's get started. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use this template and click on this button here called Use Template. It is asking me, hey, provide a name to your project. So let's name it as Dispatcher. And here we are going to use the UiDemo. So Dispatcher UiDemo application. Okay, I'm building a dispatcher. The meaning of dispatcher is it is going to upload certain data to the queue. That is the meaning of dispatcher, which I have explained in my previous video. Now, rest of the things you can also write some description. This is to upload data to the UiDemo orchestrator queue to further process by the dispatcher, and the other one is by the performer bot, performer UiDemo bot. Okay, you can write your proper description. Rest of the things remains the same, and you see my project is getting saved under documents UiPath. This is where the project is getting saved, and the compatibility is Windows and the language is Wavy, and I'm going to hit on create button. Give it a few seconds and then the RE framework template would appear here. So RE framework template has appeared. As you know, RE framework has got 4 different states: init, or initialization state, get transaction data state, process transactions data, and then end process. Now let's see what are the changes I have to do to make it linear, because uploading of data would happen only once. You will read the Excel file and upload the data to the queue. This is a linear process. So how can you modify the RE framework template to a linear process is what you are going to see and learn. Now the very first thing, we have to get into initialization state. Okay, let's open the very first state called initialization. Now let me go back to my notepad, and here I'm going to write the steps for you. So the step one is what we have done. Select the robotic, or I'll say RE framework template. Which one we have selected? 24.10.1. Now once we have selected this, then what we are going to do, the step 2 is changes in init state. So I'll simply say init state here. Okay, so open initialization state. Fine, we have opened the initial state. Now what is the step 3? The step 3, once you have opened the initialization state, go to InitAllApplication.xaml. InitAllApplication.xaml. You can come like this. There's also another way. You can click on the project, expand the framework, and here also you have something called InitAllApplications.xaml. You can also open it like this. So what is the next step? The next step is open InitAllApplication.xaml. Now inside this, what we have to do, let's see. Let me open the workflow. Now in this workflow, what I'm going to do, I'm going to read the Excel input file. Let's have a look of the input file. Now this UiDemo file, in the previous video, I have given a link. From there you can download this particular file. In the previous video on my YouTube channel, in this video, if you go to the description, there's a link I have provided from where you can download this particular file, which is actually provided by UiPath. This file is provided by UiPath. Okay, so let me open this file. Okay, so once you have opened the file, you see these are the data which we have to upload to the queue. So we have to upload it to the queue. So what is the next step here is we have to create a queue. Let's go back to our notepad, and here I'm going to say, I'm going to simply write it step 4. The step is let me type step 4, create a queue in Orchestrator. So how do you create a queue? First of all, let's log into Orchestrator. And once you have logged in, here I am selecting the shared folder. You can select any folder you like, and then go to queue and click on add queue and create a new queue. And then here let's name it UiDemo queue. Rest of the option I'm going to leave it as it is, or default option. I'm not going to do any other changes here, and I'm going to hit on add. The moment you do this, what happened? A queue got created. What happened here? A queue got created. So UiDemo queue is created. So what is the name we have given? We can copy paste that, copy and paste it to the notepad I have created. You can name anything as you like. Okay. Now next thing is step 5. What is step 5? So you have opened InitAllApplication. Now what to do with that? Let's get back to the studio. So here I'm going to say open application. I'll slightly change it. Read the input file. What I'm saying? Read the input file. Now to read the input file, we have to place the input file in a certain structure of ReFramework. Click on this button called project. And here you would find a folder called data folder. And inside that there is a folder called input. Right click on this and then click on open. It will take you to the location in the documents UiPath and your project name, data folder and input folder. What I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this file and I'm going to paste the file, the input file inside the input folder. So what is the next step? The next step is place the input file in the data input folder of your project, right? Of the project. So data input folder, I have kept the input file. This is our next step. All right. After doing this, what is the sixth step? The next step. So the next step here is, let's go back to the studio. Here I'm going to use an activity called read CSV. What is the activity I'm going to use? Read CSV. And then let's point out to the file where it was. So where we have kept the file? Inside the data input, select the file, click on open. You can make it as dynamic as possible. Okay, so here I have simply selected the file. Now after you have selected the file, you have to pass the data out of this workflow. So which workflow you are currently working on? Invoke InitAllApplication workflow. So what is the next step we have done? Read CSV activity, right? Use the read CSV activity. This is what we are doing now, the sixth step. Now what is important here? Because you are reading a Excel and you want to pass the data outside of this workflow. If you click on these arguments, you see only argument we have is the config getting inside the workflow. Now inside this workflow, if I click on open, we are reading something. If I read, the data should go out. So what I will do, I will first create an argument. So for that, I'll click on data manager. I'm going to click on arguments. And here let's create an argument. So what kind of argument is this? It's going to pass the data outside. So I will say out and then I will say DT transaction data. What I'm saying, DT transaction data, and then I'm going to name it as out. And here I will change the data type to data table. Getting it what I did? So here we have created an argument called out DT transaction data. What is the argument? I'll simply say arg out. Sorry, it copied everything. Copy again, paste. No, it's not happening. Okay, let me type. So what I did, out underscore transaction data is the argument created, right? Create argument out transaction data. What is the data type of this? Data table. Data table is the data type. So if you see, data table is created. Now save it. Go one step back. Then you would see your invoke InitAllApplication would have some yellow line. What you do, simply hit on refresh and then click on it. You will see the new argument has appeared, which is a data table. Now where to pass this data? This is also important to know. What do you do? Let me cancel it and go to the main workflow. I'm clicking on the general business. It will take me to the main workflow. Here, if I click on the data manager and click on the variable, these are called global variables, meaning these variables can be used anywhere in your RE framework. In this, one of the variable is called DT underscore transaction data, which is a data table variable. What is it? The DT underscore transaction data is a data table variable or a global variable which you can use anywhere in your RE framework. So what we will do, let's get back to our initialization state and then let's get back to the InitAllApplication, initialization application, right? InitAllApplication. Let's open the workflow. Okay, so this one. So let me click on open workflow. Now here what I will do, I have created an argument here called out DT transaction data. Let's use this variable here. So what's going to happen? It is going to read the CSV file which has a header and it's going to pass all the data to this variable called out underscore DT transaction data. So this variable is going to contain my data. In the data that is present in the Excel, this variable is going to hold it. Let's save this. Let's go click on the main. And here I am going to click on this argument, this button. In this one, I am going to pass the values out to which variable? dt underscore transaction data, which is a global variable. You got the point? So now this variable is going to hold my data table data, and I'm going to hit on save and save. Now let's go back to our notepad and write this. So we have read it, and after that, what we have done after we have created, then in the step 7, right, pass the value of out underscore transaction data, this is very important, equals to what we have done, dt underscore transaction data. This is the variable where we have passed the data. So this is all about the init state. We can do many modifications as required, but this is what is fundamentally needed for to build a dispatcher model. Okay, so I have done it. Now what I will do, I'll save it. I'll close the initall application. So I'm done with the initall application. I'm going to get back to the main flow. So the only change I have done in the initialization is this. One more important factor we have missed. Tell me what? Now let me go back to initial state. In the init state, it reads the config file. Remember, it reads the config file. How do you open the config file? Again, click on this project panel, and then there is a folder here called data, and there is a folder here called temp. If you expand temp, inside this you would find a config file. Remember to open the config file by double clicking on it. So the next step is open config file. Step number 8. What it is? Open config file. And how did you open it? For that, you went to data, you went to temp, and then you have opened the config.xls file. Okay, this is how you have to open the config file. After I have opened the config file, in the orchestrator queue name, I am going to copy paste the queue name. So what is the queue name we have given? UiDemo queue. So I'm going to copy paste the queue name, and this is very, very important. Orchestrator queue name, the value must match with the queue name defined in the orchestrator. So what I will do, I'll go one step back to this one, and I'll ensure the name is proper. Okay, and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to ensure I pasted it correctly. There's no mistake, there's no extra space, everything should be perfect. And then I'm going to save this, and I'm going to close it. So the next step, what we did after opening, we are update the config file with the queue name. That's all I've done. This now let's move on to step 9. Done. Now let's go back to our ReFramework and let's click on the general business. So this is where your entire ReFramework is appearing. After initialization, let's get on to get transaction data state. So the next thing is get transaction, open get transaction data state, open get transaction data state. Okay, so this is your next. So let me open it. Now once I open, where I have to go? I have to go to this one, invoke get a transaction data workflow. Okay, then the next thing is open, what is the XAML name? Get transaction data.xaml. So get transaction data.xml. You have to open this. Okay, now let's write this step 11. So let's open this. Now inside this, there is a very, very important change you have to do. This is also generally asked during the interviews. To make it linear, what is the change would you do in the get transaction data? So the very first thing what I will do, look at the get transaction item. The get transaction item is passing value to what variable? Out a transaction item. It's a transaction item. Some data it is going to pass after reading from the queue. Because it is a dispatcher model, you are not going to use a get transaction item activity. You are trying to upload it to the queue, not getting things from the queue. So hence, I will be deleting this activity called get transaction item. This is the very first step. So what I have done, delete get transaction activity. Okay, this is the first thing I have done. deleted the get transaction activity. Now what is the step 12? After you have deleted, what should you do? Now here you have to click on this plus sign and add a if activity. See, I've added a if activity. So what I've done, I'm adding an if activity inside. Okay, so here you have to add a if activity. Let me, do you want to save? Okay, so once again I'll open this get transaction data workflow. Okay, we have deleted the get transaction activity and here I have added a if activity. So let's go inside the if activity, and what to write inside the if activity we have to see. So next is add if activity. After you have deleted the same place, you have to add the if activity. Step 30, exactly same place I have added the if activity. Okay, now what to do with this? So here I would use another global variable. So let me show you the global variable. The global variable name is transaction number. You see, there's a variable called transaction number is equal to 1. This is the variable I'm going to use inside the if condition. I will explain why you have to use it. Remember the name, just understand this name, transaction number. So if it is processing the first transaction, transaction number, default value is 1. If it is processing the next transaction, then the value would increase to 2. So transaction number is the variable I'm using. Let's go back to the workflow. Now here what I will do, before you get into it, once again let me go to get transaction data, where we went inside this workflow. So this workflow, if you click on this, you would be able to see the different arguments that are used here. So what are the arguments that are used here? One of the argument is called in transaction number. So it is a transaction number, meaning it has a value called 1. The 1 is going to pass here to an argument called in transaction number argument. What value is coming? Because the transaction number is default value is 1. Hence the in underscore transaction number default value also becomes 1. You are simply passing that value to an argument. What I will do, I'll open this workflow, and here I'm going to use that in underscore transaction number is equals to 1. What I'm writing a condition, this is the condition, very important condition to make your dispatcher a linear process, meaning it will run only one time. Now here condition, what is the condition we have to write? The condition is this, in transaction number is equals to 1. This is the condition. If it is 1, then what I want to do, if it is 1, then use a assign activity. Now if you got confusion or you forgot of how to act on this, I'll also give you a clue. Click on this project panel. Okay, there is a folder here called documentation. Open this PDF, ReFramework documentation PDF. You open it. Now once you open it, search for something, type linear, simply type linear. Now if you type here, you would be able to find a image, figure number 7. There is an image here for linear process. Here there is a picture. It is clearly telling you to make it linear, you have to make in transaction number is equals to 1, and if it is 1, then out transaction you have to pass certain value. If it is not 1, then you have to make it to nothing, meaning if because it's linear, it has to run only one time, right? Once the transaction number is incremented, it will become 2. So if it is 2, then you set it to nothing, it will go to end state. Now this is the exact condition we are going to build it. Let's go back to the studio. So here what I will do, what is the variable used here in the workflow? If you go back, look at the argument, there is an argument called out transaction item. What is the argument here? Out transaction item. It is passing the value to another global variable called transaction item. So out transaction item is the variable. So what I will do here, I will simply open the workflow and use this argument. What is the argument name? Out underscore transaction item. Okay, so I've used the out underscore transaction item argument. Here what I will do, remember we have read the data and kept the output in this variable called dt transaction data. This is the variable I'm going to use it. This is the variable which holds the data, right, of your input Excel. What I will do here, I'm going to click on this and then look for if there is any variable called transaction data. So if you see this dt transaction data in the template itself, it is built. dt underscore transaction data is your data table variable which is having your input data. It is passing its data to an argument called IODT transaction data. IO underscore input output is a kind of a different kind of a argument. Input and output both is possible with this type of argument. So you have in out and in out. So this is a in out. So IO underscore DT. So this is the argument we will be using inside the workflow. Knowledge of this arguments are absolutely important for a UiPath RPA developer. Okay, so now IODT transaction data, I am going to use it. So what I will do, I'll open the workflow and here I'm going to click on this and use that argument IODT transaction data, which is my data table dot rows, and then I will mention the row one. Okay, now here I am passing certain data to this data table. Now let me hit on save. Now what is happening here when you say row, what is the data type? The data type is data row. The data type is data row. So very important change you have to do to certain variables. I will tell you what changes you have to do. The first thing, inside the get transaction data. So here what I did, the condition is transaction number 1 and then step 14. I had used a assign activity and there what I did, out underscore transaction item is equals to IO underscore DT underscore transaction data, right? Transaction data dot row and then I return 0 rows and 0. This is what I've done. But here it is important to change the data type of these variables. Okay, step number 15 is data type change. Data type change. So which variables you have to do the data type change? I will tell you. So first you save it. There is an error. Click on this data manager. Go to arguments. And here the out transaction item argument from queue item, you have to make it to data row. Simply type data row and select system data.data row. This is the first thing you have to do. Okay. Here you have done out transaction item data type. So what we have done, out underscore transaction item, change it to what data type? System dot data row, because we are dealing with Excel. First you do this change and then save it. Go one step back and refresh the argument. After you have refreshed, you will see there is still a problem, because here what happened, the out transaction item you have changed it, but here there was a variable called transaction item that got vanished. So what you have to do, very important, go to the main flow. Go to the data manager, click on the variable, and here I am going to select the transaction item variable. By nature of ReFramework, the transaction item, the data type is queue item. So what you do, you change this to data row. Very important. Next step is step 16. Okay, change data type of transaction item global variable to system.data.data row. This is very important. So here I have changed it and then save it. Now let's go back once again to get a transaction. You see the lot of errors are coming. Don't worry. This all will be fixed. Now once you have done it, once again go to the info get transaction data and here click on it and add the new variable, the transaction item variable. Just now you change it to very important. In the argument you have to make this. Okay, if you don't do it, it will move to end state. So very important step. Let me write it. Step 17. What is the step 17? In the argument panel, right? Argument panel of the workflow. What you do here, you have to out underscore transaction item is equals to, you have to pass it to transaction item. It's very, very important here. Okay, don't miss it. It should not be blank. And then save it and save your entire project. Let's open the workflow once again. So here what you have done, we are simply passing the data to out transaction data, and we are passing the first row of your data. Are you going to use this data, the raw data? No, it is just to ensure the flow is going to run only once. So that's why you have to pass certain data. So I pass certain data, and this is a dummy data. This is not going to really be, you are not going to use this out transaction item because it's a dispatcher, right? You are not going to process them. You are simply passing certain data. If the transaction number is not equals to 1, meaning it is the second iteration. Second iteration, you should use another assign activity here. Very, very important step. Assign. Same way. Very simple. Out underscore transaction item variable. And here I'm going to write an expression called nothing. So nothing means what would happen if you are assigning out transaction item is equal to nothing. So if you go little the bottom of this of the workflow, okay. So here if you see, if the invoke get transaction data workflow is set to nothing, what would happen? If there is no data, it will go to end process state. How do you know it? If I go one step back, and here if I look at the no data transition, if you double click on it, here it is saying if transaction item is equal to nothing. What is the transaction item? Is a variable, and how this variable will get value from the out underscore transaction item. If it is nothing, then it should move to the end state. No data, end state. Hence, what would happen when you set it to nothing? It will go to the end state, and it will, because you are running it for one time. Linear means what? Running it one time. Let's open this. Okay, let's open this. Let's keep doing it. You might get a bit of confusions. Don't worry, just continue throughout the video. Try it what I'm doing. You will be able to understand when you execute yourself. So now what I have done here, I have right here in this one, I used another activity called assign and did out transaction is equal to nothing. Very important step. Let's write that. Step 18 in the else condition, right? So here it is a if condition. If this is the then, right? In the then section, you have written this out transaction item is equal to this one. Else condition, what you have to write in the else condition, out underscore transaction item is equals to nothing. This is what you have to write. This is your step 8. So once you have done this, save it. Okay, and then you have a catch section. If there's any problem comes and it will just could not retrieve it, that's fine. I'm going to close it. As I said, you can still modify your logs and everything, but here I am going to focus only on the fundamental changes. Okay, so let me close this. Do you want to save the file? Yes, of course I have to save the file. So this is saved. Now what is happening here? The transaction item is equal to nothing got an error. Now this can happen. All you have to do, simply delete this, save it, come back again, simply type nothing. Okay, this will auto fix nothing and hit on save. Because the data type has been changed, that's why the problem was. Okay, here also you see, here also end process, stop process and all this. Here also it has got a problem. Once again, remove this, save it, open it again and type nothing and save it. It's just refreshing the activities. Now you see there's no other error. Save this and go back to the main. So you see there was an yellow icon here. Everything got fixed. Okay, so what are the important areas here? The important area is we worked on this get transaction data.xaml, and here very important is out transaction item should pass it to transaction item. The data type of this variable has been changed to data row, right? This is what we have done. And then in the open workflow, we have removed the get transaction item activity and placed a if activity. And in the if activity, these are the things we have done as per the documentation of UiPath. Okay, so this is all done. I'm going to close this flow. So what we have completed, the init state is completed, get transaction data state is also completed. Now we have to move to our third state. the process transaction state. Let me open this process transaction state. Okay, there are errors, don't worry about them at the moment. So what I will do, the invoke process workflow, there is another XAML called process.xaml. How do I find this XAML? If I click on the project panel, go to the framework, there is also something called process.xaml. If you double click also, it will open the process.xaml, or you simply open workflow also, it will open it. So in the process.xaml, if I click on the argument, there are two things, transaction item and this one. So here it is having an error. Why? Because I have to change the data type from queue item to data row and then hit on save. Okay, now hit on the refresh argument. Now the error is gone. Let's open the workflow. I'm in the process workflow. Let's look at the data manager argument and the changes that you have done. If it is not reflecting here, it is important that you change it here. Data row and then save it. This is very important to change to data row. Save it, go to the workflow, refresh it. Now check it again. You see it has saved to data row, and here you are passing the transaction item. Okay. Now, what is our main goal here? The main goal is we have to read the Excel file and upload the data to the queue. So let's open the workflow. And here I'm going to say started data upload from input file to UiDemo queue. You can write your own logs. Okay, so I've written some log. Now in this one I'm going to delete it, and here, so what we are doing, let's continue to write. So next thing what we have done, step 19, open process state. Okay, and step 20, open process.xaml. Okay, and the step 21, right, the argument where we have changed the data type, right? What is the argument name? In transaction item argument change to data row. In underscore transaction item change the data type to data row. This is important. So once you have done this 3 steps, okay, now here you have to actually write your own, as a developer you have to write your own logic. What is our goal here? It has to read the input file. So you have seen the input file. This is the input file. It has to read the input file and upload the input file to the queue. So for that, I will use an activity called for each row in data table. What is the activity I'm using? For each row in data table. So next step is step 22, right? Use for each row in data table activity. Okay, now what is the next step? Let's see. So after you have used it, here the important, which variable is holding your data? dt underscore transaction data. So what I will do, I'll click on the project manager, data manager, and here I'm going to create an argument. What is the argument I want to create is an in argument, and I'm going to say dt underscore transaction data argument I have to create, and then here I will say in, and the date type I will make it to data table. Very, very important step, and save it. So what we have done, create a new argument called in underscore dt underscore transaction data, and the data type is what? Data table. So once you create it, save it. Now go one step back. Here in the invoke process workflow, right, I'm going to refresh it. So when you refresh it and open it, you will see the new argument which you have created has appeared. Okay, now which global variable holding your data table data? The data transaction data is holding that data. So simply you have to pass it. So when you pass it, this is the variable which is now holding your real data from the input file, and save it. Now once again open the workflow. Here I'm going to use the in underscore dt transaction data, which is my data table in the for each row in data table. After that, in the body, what I want to do in the body, I wanted to read. After reading, I want to upload it to the queue. So I'll use the add queue item activity. Okay. So here what we have done in dt for each row, step 24. For each row in data table, what is the argument we have used? In underscore dt underscore transaction data. Now what is the step 25th? The step 25 is add queue item. Okay, use add queue item activity. Okay, now here let's configure the and configure. Okay, so how do you configure the add queue item? The first thing is Orchestrator folder path. So here the modern activities would directly fetch your folders from your orchestrator. That is one way. You can also use the config file, and there you also can pass the path of the folders. That is also possible. So here I will simply select shared, and in the queue also it will automatically populate in the modern one. So you can see the UiDemo queue has appeared. Now in the config file, also you can use the in config and then provide the key name, and that is another way of using the RQ item. Okay, it's up to you. Now once you have done this, next is the item information. Click on this argument, and here we have to create the items that we would like to pass. What does it mean item? Items means these are the queue items. Okay, cache in, on as check, non. These are the columns of a single queue item. These are the data I want to pass. This is the data row, this is another data row, another data row. Like that, it has to pass all of the data to the queue. Now to do that, you have to create this column names. To create the column names, what we will do, we'll open the file, copy the column name and simply paste it here. Okay, add entry. What is the second next column name? On as check. Copy it and paste it here. What is the third value you want to pass to the queue? Not on as check. Copy this and paste it here. And all of these are what kind of a data? Integer kind of a data. Let me make it to integer. Now remember, all of these are because you are inside a loop. So there is a variable called current row in the loop. You see, you must have seen that. Okay, in the for each loop, current row. So what I will do, current row in the bracket, I will write the column name. So the data table is a representation of this Excel. So the Excel has a header, and the header column name is caption. So all you do within the double quote, I'm going to write caption and hit on save. So what is happening here? There's an error. How do you fix the error? Open it again and hit on fix. These are the modern tools that are available. So what it had done, convert to integer, whatever the value is there in this, convert that to integer and done, and you are going to save it. So just copy this and then paste this into here, and then paste the same thing into this. Okay, now what you have to do, the names you have to change. On as check you copy, and instead of cache in, because these are the different columns of the Excel, right? So I'm going to simply replace it with on as check. So it is going to read the on as check value and pass it here. Then the third column is not on as check. So I'm going to read this and pass the not on as check. Ensure there is no extra space, nothing. Okay, be careful about it. Okay, let's double check. Cache in looks perfect. On as check. Okay, all right, and then not on as check. These are the columns I have read, and I'm going to hit on save. So the configure, when I say configure, you have understood, you have to do all these steps. So these are the three items from the Excel which we will be passing it to the queue. Okay, so once this is done, the next important step, very, very important step. After this, you have to increment the transaction number value to 2 so that it remains a linear process. So here what I will do, I need the transaction number. So for that, let's save this, go one step back. Let's get back to the process example. Let's create an argument here called in out. So in out means IO, you have to write underscore transaction number. And here the data type I will make to in out, and here it has to be integer. Okay, and then save it. So IO transaction number. So create an argument. This is very important step. Step 26. create an argument called in out underscore transaction number. What is the data type? Data type is in32. Okay, so once you have created the argument, what next? Go one step back to the main, refresh your argument, open this, and here I'm going to pass to the global variable called transaction number. See, that is the importance of all the global variables. Okay, and I'm going to hit on save and save. So what are the next step we have done? Then what you have to do, step 27, IO underscore transaction number is equals to transaction number, and where you have to do this in the argument configuration panel. Okay, just now we did. Okay, we saw that. So step number 27 is completed. Very good. Now once it is done, you have to save, and then let's go back to the workflow once again. Inside this, what I will do, IO transaction number is equals to, I would say, IO transaction number plus 1. So meaning the IO transaction number has a value 1 plus 1, it becomes 2. The moment it becomes 2, now save it. Okay, this is very important one. So here the next step, what we have done, step 28, IO underscore transaction number is equals to IO underscore transaction number plus 1. Okay, and IO transaction is in 32. So we have done that. So why are you incrementing the number? I'll tell you. So let's go one step back to the main. Okay, so you have done this. Go one step back. So when the transaction number gets incremented here, it will come to get transaction data. And in the get transaction data, we have put a condition in this get transaction data workflow. Here we have said the transaction number is equals to 1, then only you pass the value. If it is 2, so 1 plus 1 will become 2, so the condition will not meet, so the else will get executed and the out transaction item will become nothing and will go to end state. That is the whole purpose of adding a 1 there. Now let's go back. So this is done. Let's go one step back, okay, to the process transaction state. So there are a lot of errors, you see. We have to fix these errors. Open it up and let's see where are the errors coming from. Now here the invoke set transaction activity, do you need it? We don't need it because we are simply doing a dispatching activity. We are not setting transaction of queue items. Hence what I will do, I'm going to delete this entire try catch block. First thing. Second thing, are you going to handle the business rule exceptions? Okay, so let me write it while I'm saying step 29. I have deleted the set transaction try catch block. Okay, because it is a dispatcher, we don't need it. And the next thing, what I'm going to do, business rule exception. Are you going to deal with the business rule exceptions? No, I'm going to delete even this. System exceptions, yeah, while doing it there could be system exceptions, maybe you need this. Okay, now to do this, what I will you don't need the invoke transaction, but you need this log message. I'm going to copy the log message. Okay, so here step 30, delete the set transaction try catch block, success plus business rule exception B. Next one, in the system exception block, delete the set transaction status. Okay, so you don't need this set transaction status, but what I need is the log message. So what I will do, I'll highlight this and paste it below that. So I need the log message, and this entire all the try catch block which contains the set transaction status, I'm deleting them. Okay, now what I will do with the log message, I'll simply have this set transaction status failed. Instead of this, I will change this message to upload data to queue failed. Okay, at source, and it's going to write the some message if it fails. Okay, because above that you have an invoke process workflow, it'll catch it, and there's any problem, it'll just write it. So this is all I have done. Okay, and so step 31 is use the log message for system exceptions. Okay, step 31. So once you have done all of this, you are good to go. So I'm going to save this and see if there is any other error. We'll fix them. So the error has also disappeared. Okay, so this is all set. So how many steps? Roughly 30 to 31 steps we have updated. Okay, all right. So now yeah, so now let's go back to the studio, save it. Let's check the queue. So at present the queue has no data. Okay, it is all zero. If you click on this, click on view transaction. See, there is no data at all. There's no data at all. So what I will do, I'll close this. I'm going to run this workflow. So for this, you can hit on this button, be there in the main. Rest of the XAMLs, please close it. If there's any problem, anyways, we are going to work on them. I'm going to start the debug. Let's see what is going to happen. Okay, now the debug started for file main. All right, let's give it a second. Okay, I think I forgot one thing. What you tell me? I think I kept the input files and everything open. I think this is a, let me close it. Don't save. Okay, the config file, everything you should close. Okay, before starting. Okay, I've closed it. So initialization settings, it went to kill process, init all application started, get transaction data, it went to processed data, and the for each loop is running. It happened very quickly. You see, processing the transaction number one, that is processing it. So for each and RQ item is currently running. Okay, you can see this small blink is happening there. Okay, so it is, there are around 300 records it is trying to upload. It is uploading it to the queue. Perfect. So let's wait for few more minutes. Okay, it's executing one by one. There is also another activity called bulk upload to queue. Okay, you can also try that. Okay, so the for each loop is currently getting executed. Let's wait for few more minutes. All right, so now you can see it has executed all the data. Now if you want to see the output, you see, you can also make a lot of modifications like count how many transactions went and all these things. You can do it. So it finally worked. So what we did is followed the steps. Okay, this step 30. So all these steps I am also going to copy paste in the description of the video in case you would like to take a copy of this and try to do it yourself. Is also fine. So now let's, important part is we have to check the queue. Okay, whether the data appeared or not. I'm going to refresh it. You see the 300 rows of data has come. Let's click on the view transaction. Okay, you see all the data are present here. Now you want to see the data, click on the three dots, click on view details. Okay, and here you'll be able to see, okay, cash in is 300, honest check is 6,000. So the values from the Excel has appeared. Let me click on some other row and then click on view details. You see 295, like that all the data has uploaded to the queue. So what we have learned is a building a dispatcher model. So I have spent a lot of time together we have spent. So please do give it a like and do subscribe to the channel, and also do let me know how was the entire thing. Were you able to complete it till the end, right? Were you able to watch the video till the end, and were you able to complete this exercise, and is it working for you? If you have followed my steps carefully, definitely it's going to work. If not, re-watch it and try to redo it. Anywhere, anything, something you might have missed it, please go through this entire steps or the checklist. Thank you for watching. We'll meet once again, and in the next video, I will try to create the performer XAML or the performer bot. This is a dispatcher bot which uploaded the data to the queue, and the performer bot is going to consume the data and going to process all the data into the UiDemo application. So thank you once again for watching and having a lot of patience till now. Thank you very much. Let's meet once again in my next content.